because joining us now is Field Yates of ESPN. Field, can you hear me?
I can hear you okay. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Exciting times right now in New England.
Good
Field,
seeing you.
You have a lot of rich mahogany behind you.
Yeah, I borrowed it. I took it off of Reese's paycheck. That's how I paid for it.
Yeah, no, I know how that works.
Field, it's good talking with you. Of course, you've got your New England roots, and but now you're covering the league as a whole. But I'm sure that you always have a keen eye as to what the Patriots are doing. What was your opinion of how draft weekend turned out for the Patriots?
Yeah, I think this has the weekend. This is the potential to be the weekend, and I know this is what everybody says about every draft. But the potential to be the weekend to set the course for the Patriots' future. Drake Maye, and I said this from the moment that the draft order was set for the non-playoff teams, that there was no such thing as a consolation prize amongst the top three quarterbacks. The 3 months between the end of the regular season and the start of the NFL draft were going to determine who went 1, 2, and 3, but I really felt strongly that all three of them merited top 3 pick consideration. And depending on the year, any of them could have easily been the number 1 player in the entire draft. So the fact that the Patriots stood at number 3 resisted the temptation to move back. And I understand that temptation. There's evidence that suggests that having a ton of extra draft capital can be very, very valuable. But there's nothing more important in roster building in football than having a quarterback who can make everything else go. And the Patriots now have that in Drake Maye, and they used 6 of their subsequent 7 picks on offense, which was a sign that, hey, we have the quarterback in place, but it doesn't matter if you're if you're a rookie quarterback or if you're at the very top of the food chain like Patrick Mahomes right now for the Chiefs. We're going to continue to invest in you because it's still the ultimate team sport, and we have a lot of work to do to help get Drake Maye to where we believe he can get to.
Are you in the sit him for a while, or are you in the camp of he needs to get right out there?
Yeah, I'm okay with sitting Drake Maye for a little while here, and maybe I'm a little bit too old school for the modern era of the NFL, but I believe that one of the reasons in which we see young quarterbacks play so often is that there's pressure for these GMs and head coaches. That they understand that they only have so much of a leash to work with here. We see so much turnover in those positions around the NFL. I don't think that's the case here with the Patriots, though. Obviously, with Jerod Mayo and Elliott Wolf both in their first years in their respective positions, this does align as an opportunity for a team to say, if the quarterback isn't ready, or if they feel like playing Drake Maye right out of the chutes can do equally as much bad as it can good, then maybe it's a chance for Jacoby Brissett to start some number of games to begin the season. 1, 2, 10, 17. I don't know the answer to be specific, but I'm an advocate for it if the player is not fully ready. It's going to be really hard if Drake Maye does some of the stuff that I anticipate he'll do. I know you guys have all watched him endlessly right now.
Yep.
But wait till first Patriots training camp practice is open to the public, because the fans are going to see up close and personal what kind of a special player this is. And you're going to have moments during training camp. They're going to make you say, wow.
Now, you're talking about Joe Milton, right? I'm only kidding.
Well, him
I saw
too.
that
Joe
coming.
will
I saw
definitely wow you, that's for sure. But, Drake's going to have enough moments that are going to wow you, that people are going to say, how can we not play this kid right away? That being said, I do think there is something to be learned in a young quarterback's trajectory from seeing it from sideline view for a little bit. I'm not talking about 3 years here. I'm talking about maybe 3 games.
Yeah.
That might be what it takes for the Patriots to feel like Drake Maye is more ready.
Yeah.
Phil, we talked to you. Thanks for talking to us at the Combine. And we talked Elliott Wolf saying Patriots got to weaponize their offense. What did you think of the 2 picks there, Polk and Baker?
Yeah, if anybody here listens to the first draft show, thank you, first of all. But second of all, you'll know that Mel and I try to do our best to not spend all day talking about just the guys that will go at the very top of the draft. And we did our favorites list. It's our players that could go not in round 1, or most likely not in round 1, that we just loved and loved studying them, loved something about their game, loved everything about their game. And the captain of my team was Jalen Polk. I felt strongly about this player throughout the process. I feel as though in a really, really deep wide receiver class, he might have been the most underappreciated of all of them. Jalen Polk is a dog. I know that's kind of a cliche, but this kid is so tough. He's got vice grip hands. The analogy that I continue to use is he is a low post player in the NBA 25 years ago. Not a lot of flash, not a lot of substance. He just gets buckets. There's just He just consistently moves the chains. And we talk about great hands in football. We think about highlight reel catches, right? The Odell Beckham Jr. catch with 2 fingertips. And those are great. Those are remarkable. I'm not trying to take away from the merits of those. I think about great hands. And I think about, and you guys have all followed this team long enough to know there's some great players that have come through this Patriots franchise for a long time. Guys who just consistently made clutch. Troy Brown, great example there, right? Like Troy just made catches reliably.
Yeah.
If Tom put the ball on his back hip, he made the catch. It wasn't necessarily these catches that get you on the SportsCenter top 10, but rather just clutch production plays. And I thought Jalen Polk just made catches consistently. Really good body control as well. One of my favorite players, truly. One of my favorite players in the entire class.
You talk about guys like Troy Brown and Edelman and Welker, guys that just move the chain consistently. I felt all those guys had very, very high football IQs. Yeah. So do you have any indication of Polk's IQ when it comes to football?
Yeah, the IQ and the character are A+. I mean, outstanding. That's part of the consideration when you're sitting there at 37. I know they were 34 before they moved back, is that the board was kind of wide open there, right? You had a bunch of different wide receivers that could have merited consideration right there, and they ended up adding some extra draft capital and then taking Jalen Polk. I believe, was it the 4th that they got in the deal that they used on
Javon Baker?
Used on Javon Baker as well?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
110.
Yeah, I have to. 257 picks. Some of it's still a blur to me.
Yeah.
I know they gave the 5th to LA and picked up the 4th. So that was where they got Javon Baker. But that 37th pick, like, there are some real good candidates to take besides Jalen Polk.
Yeah.
The 37 was a sign of not just the skill set physically, but also the mentality, the IQ, the person, the character. You have a young quarterback now in Drake Maye, and you want to make sure that you support him with the right people. We think about that if the coach, the offensive coordinator, the position coach that he'll be working with, you name it. But some of it's the people as well on the roster. What kind of guys do you want to have around your young quarterback that are going to help elevate him in the same way that he can help elevate them? And I feel like Jalen Polk is like that. I had a chance. I loved him throughout the process. I went to the Washington Pro Day, got a chance to see him up close and personal. And him and Rome Odunze, who of course went 9th to the Bears, like, those are truly special young men as well. The kind of guys that the minute they walk into a room, they kind of change the chemistry of it. So that was a big ad for the Patriots. I saw the people. There was some belly aching apparently. Jalen Polk went too high according to various boards. I had him 42nd on my board, and I don't know. I had 400 players graded. So 42 for me was right in line with about where he went, and I thought this kid was an absolute stud. So I was great with that pick. Javon Baker was a value based off my board. He was, I believe, 72nd on my board. So that's a good value there in the 4th round. But again, this is in some ways it's just, what are we doing to empower our young quarterback? And we're using 6 of our final 8 selections, or excuse me, 6 of our final 7 on offensive pieces. Maybe you want to call it 5 out of 7 because one of them was also a quarterback. But the point is, the Patriots went offense heavy throughout this draft. And while there's still work to do, it's a good step forward to help Drake Maye feel like, hey, this team's trying to surround me with the right pieces.
Yep. Tamara?
Hi.
Hi, Tamara.
Hi. What was your opinion of the Patriots double dipping at quarterback, and what do you think of the pick overall?
Joe was one of the most fascinating players, regardless of position, in the entire class. I had so many conversations with people during the process saying, where do you think Joe Milton will go? And nobody could quite pinpoint what the exact round or pick would be for Joe, because some of it with Joe during the evaluation is you saw what you wanted to see. But if you took a big step back and just took all the various exposures and try to condense them down into one single vision, what I saw was a player who, if coached up correctly and not rushed into action, has a chance to develop into something in the NFL. What does that something mean? I don't know specifically. Becoming a starting quarterback after being taken in the, was it 6th round, 5th round? Again, I'm sorry if I...
6th round. Yep.
6th round. Patriots fans probably would disagree with this, but that's hard to do, right? I mean, Tom Brady is 1 of 1 in so many ways.
He's 192, too high.
Yeah, all right, there you go. Say 192. Yeah, that no one becomes a starter from 192. It's only that 199 spot that matters. But Joe, the Patriots, and maybe this is the Elliott Wolf factor. I don't know exactly why. Who is the most responsible for wanting? I guess every pick is Elliott's most responsible for, but I don't know which voices in the room were also arguing for the support of Joe Milton. But they want to be a quarterback factory. You want to have an arm in the pipeline every single year. And, I feel like it's good business to be drafting one almost every single year. We've seen teams that have done so, and you're not going to hit on all of them. But if you hit on one or two of them every 5 or 8 or 10 years, it's great business. It's going to help you out. So Joe's so fascinating. He's an awesome kid. He's a great dude. He's had to pay his dues, Joe has. Has not been easy. I mean, he kind of came to Michigan with a ton of fanfare and a lot of potential, 4-star recruit. He had to wait. He basically had 1 year as a starting quarterback at the college level, 1 full season. But I mean, as we all know, massive arm, the most effortless arm I've seen in person at the college ranks for quite some time. He's a good athlete too. Had an 80+ yard touchdown run last year. There's something to work with Joe. It's a project, but in the 6th round, those are the kind of sort of swing for the fences type of picks that I think are worthwhile.
Some on this show feel like by getting a guy like Joe Milton, who has such unique talents, but you're creating maybe unnecessary noise for a first-round pick who also you need to develop. What do you think about that?
I don't think in the 6th round you're doing that. That's my opinion. I understand that thought and sentiment. I've seen it. I didn't interpret it that way personally. And part of that I think is probably like knowing the character of Drake a little bit. Had a chance to spend actually most of, at least until the third pick, the evening prior to the draft, right around the Maye family, and competition's in the blood of Drake Maye. I mean, all 3 of his brothers were there, and you could just see it, right? Like you could see the competitive fire. The 4 of them were kind of horsing around before the draft, having a blast, like getting ready for this special moment. And I don't think Drake is going to be bothered by the presence of somebody, right? He forever has had to kind of scratch and crawl and claw to become, kind of the person he is today, because he had 3 older brothers who were all star athletes. I mean, 3 who played Division I sports, national champions in basketball and baseball and, big programs. So I'd be surprised if this created like this inherent, sort of uncertainty for Drake. I feel like he'll be cool with it. I don't know that for a fact. I would guess that though. But I was more fine with that. If it's a 3rd round pick, then we got a problem. Here, But the 6th round, 192, at some point there are only so many players left to take. So I thought that was a reasonable way to approach that pick.
Field, Bill Belichick was obviously on with Pat McAfee on ESPN during the draft, and they showed a draft board that seemed to be team needs that were behind him, and some people thought that maybe it was, weren't sure if those were actually Bill's needs for teams or if you guys had handed it. I'm not sure if you knew, who was the one that was constructing that board, but it was just interesting, to see what he thought of the Patriots roster, obviously after he was just the coach here not too long ago.
Yeah, I think those were, so that was my board that you saw up there, my top 50 and such. Are you asking about the cornerback thing specifically, Evan?
Yeah. Well, it's just obviously, weird to see cornerback up there compared to, receiver or something like that. But I was just wondering if, did Bill have a hand in those needs? Because I'm interested, about his thoughts on the roster that he just coached, obviously.
Yeah, I'm almost positive, and I'll pull the file up right now. I did not have cornerback on my Patriots need list. No, I did not. So, I think Bill had some influence there of how the needs were conveyed, because I just pulled it up and I did not have. I had, believe it or not, quarterback, wide receiver,
tackle.
So those were my needs for the Patriots. So I don't know, but so if you're asking how could cornerback be a need for the Patriots, the question might be, you have one potential megastar in Gonzo. You have another solid starter in Jonathan Jones. Obviously, you have Marcus Jones hoping for great things and a bounce back year this year. Do you need more size in that cornerback room? Which, by the way, they got Marcellus Dial, who he had been mentioned on the First Draft podcast as a value pick about 10 days prior to the draft beginning. So I was a fan of the player there. But I personally felt like, the needs were stronger, across the offensive line. I mean, across the offensive board, pretty much, wide receiver, offensive tackle, quarterback, and any kind of supplementary offensive line investments.
Yep.
Field, in your dealings with the various personnel guys, I'm just wondering if there was a consensus about Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye. I know you started off.
I did not get that.
Did you feel like there were anybody that felt Maye was better than Daniels? Like that's kind of that's kind of how we felt here. Going in, and I don't know if we convinced ourselves, sort of knowing that we had the 3rd pick, but I like a lot about what Drake Maye does over Jaden Daniels. I'm just curious what some of the executives might have thought that you spoke to.
Yeah, it leaned towards Jaden versus Drake, but everybody also has a little bit of a different perspective on this. I would say the most popular refrain when assessing the case for Drake over Jaden is that the long-term potential and upside to Raider. And I, by the way, see a plausible case for that. I had Jaden as quarterback 2 and Drake as quarterback 3. But, guys, we're splitting hairs here, obviously. But the physical skill set and the upside that Drake brings to the table is ridiculous. You just don't find guys with that kind of size, that kind of in-pocket mobility, that kind of out-of-pocket mobility, the ability to manipulate the defenders with his eyes down the field. The arm strength is great, obviously. The character is off the charts great. The age, I think, is a factor as well. Durability. And if you're looking at it through the New England lens, right, you need a guy who's built for the weather. I don't know exactly, but it feels like the Patriots over the past couple of years have been absolutely, especially in the winter, it's just been terrible weather, game after game after game. And, there were games in which, was it the Jets game last year where it was like 5 completions in the first 2 quarters or something ridiculous. You got to have a guy that has a rocket arm. You just do. Big hands, rocket arm, can take on the weather and then take on some hits as well. So to me, Drake Maye had an easy case to be quarterback 2 in this class. I'd say more than anything, though, the line that I used earlier was the most important one in my eyes, which is that there is no consolation prize of those 3. It's really a matter of how each of those 3 teams develop them, because as we know in the NFL, quarterbacks obviously don't always live up to expectations, but sometimes the teams fail the player as well.
Yep. All right, Field, I really appreciate you joining us. It was great to hear and talk with you. So where can we get more of you on ESPN? What's on the map for 2024 for you?
Gosh, I hope nothing for a while here, but we'll see. No, I'm kidding on that. We'll just keep rocking and rolling. First draft is wrapped up for the season, so we had a blast there. And fantasy football season, I started my rankings this morning, so we're rocking and rolling. And then I have my first 12 players for 2025 NFL draft up here on my grease board right here too. So we're going to keep ranking away one way or the other.
All right. Field Yates.
Hopefully the Patriots have no shot at any of those 12
Yeah, I was
players.
going to ask you, Field, are you a Kelvin Bankser or a Will Campbell guy?
Say that one more time, Evan.
Are you a Kelvin Bankser or a Will Campbell guy?
I'm a little biased because I spent the past week in Detroit and heard everybody's talking about Will Campbell, but these are breaking that tie will be a fun problem for the next 11 and a half months to debate. But I tell you what, Will Campbell had a great chance to catch up with Wink Martindale, who's now the DC at Michigan, and to say that he's fired up about Will Campbell would be the understatement of the year.
Yeah. All right, Field Yates, thank you so much. We're going to take a break on Patriots Unfiltered. Paul's Foods here. We'll be right back.